Growing up in Malaysia, one of the first few questions that I got was, what do you want to do when you grow up? And unsurprisingly, the answers were rigged. The answers were limited to doctor, lawyer, accountant, or engineer. And surprisingly, I wanted to be a doctor growing up. But the moment I opened the biology textbook, I was like, no. It was believed that at that time, these were the most in-demand and highest-paying jobs. And they were right. Doctors and engineers were among the top 10 best-paying jobs in 2014 in almost every role. In fact, the engineering field dominated the ranking in the manager and senior executive positions with 3 engineering fields on the list. Fast forward almost 10 years later, even though the jobs have changed, engineering has remained consistent in that list. However, though engineering is among the top-paying jobs in Malaysia, why is it that when you comb through the internet, you get comments like these? Many Malaysians have sour comments regarding the engineering field in Malaysia and how the country seems to have abandoned a lot of their engineers. With some say, too many engineers, too little opportunities. This country doesn't appreciate engineers, and the M in engineer stands for money. That was funny, but also very sad. Engineering is considered a highly skilled profession, which requires years of training and experience. But for some reason, a lot of these professionals feel like they've been abandoned by their homeland. So much so that many engineers have decided to take their trade to other countries or abandon the field altogether. So why do so many engineers feel so underappreciated? Before we begin, I need to emphasize, I am not an engineer. And I know little to nothing about engineering. I understand the concept, I understand the general basis of engineering, but the details go over my head. You start talking about calculations, heat transfers, and everything, it just goes in one ear and leaves the other. So while researching this topic, there was a fair bit of information that we could either not find or are anecdotal. So do take the information presented here with a grain of salt. When I mean grain, I mean a fistful. The information that we did find and do wish to share with you, however, would easily make this video 30 minutes. TikTok would hate me for this. So for your sake, as well as mine, we've cut it down to answer the main question. Why are Malaysian engineers unhappy with engineering? There are several reasons why Malaysian engineers are not happy. The prime one being pay. Many state the pay for engineers is, for lack of a better word, shit. When you look at sites like JobStreet or Glassdoor, the average median salary for engineers in 2023 usually starts at 3,000 ringgit. To some, 3,000 ringgit might be a lot of money, but to others, 3,000 ringgit might not even be enough. But 3,000 ringgit isn't even the full story. An article published by Utusan Malaysia in 2019 cited that even though touted as professionals, the starting salaries offered to graduate engineers are still the same as the 2000s, which is as low as 1,500 ringgit to 2,000 ringgit. Later in 2022, the Board of Engineers Malaysia, or BEM, released a report that stated around 35% of engineers receive a starting salary below 2,000 ringgit.
Malaysian graduates are paid very, very little. It's paid as shit. The idea is that, at least what we were told when we were paid that amount, was that we're just starting off, so we're not paid enough to survive, that's fine. We just have to work ourselves up. We have to show our skills or even to show our motivation, to show the company that we are willing to do what it takes to be a part of the company. And after that, then we will be paid enough to survive. I think that's nonsense, that's bullshit.
Yeah, I would agree that initially you're probably going to earn paycheck to paycheck, especially if you're living in the city. But engineering is a field where like the moment you hit a certain amount of experience, you become wanted in a way. If we were to draw a graph of like earnings, it's going to be exponential. So once you hit the 5, 6, 7 year, maybe 10-year mark, once you become a technical expert, then you're going to get hired basically anywhere because people want you. So that's where you can make a good living.
Now it's worth mentioning that livable wage and minimum wage are a whole other topic in itself, so we're not going to talk about it here. Maybe in the future, stay tuned, maybe in a future episode, maybe. However, the fact that many Malaysian engineers, especially fresh graduates, are barely scraping by is somewhat of a concern, which is one of the main reasons why many Malaysian professionals choose to leave the country.
When I first started in Malaysia, it was 3,000 a month before tax. And then after working for, I think 4 to 5 years, I think it's about 5 years, I barely broke 4,000 ringgit. 4,000 ringgit is not enough to support a family. I gotta work a separate job to probably even put food on the table, much less think about the education of my kids if I ever have kids in the future. After going through that and thinking about, if I move overseas, can I survive on my own? Well, unsurprisingly, the answer is yes. I'm paying a lot, and yet I'm still able to save enough to support a family if I work in Germany. It's about 5,000 euros a month. That's how much I'm paid. Yeah, 25k.
The second contributor to the dissatisfaction of Malaysian engineers is the overall workload, environment, and culture of the engineering field. Many have expressed that engineers have to work long hours, endure workplace bullying, and to some, even face discrimination.
Okay, so in my experience, I actually only did a practical training as a part of my degree. My experience during my practical training was not the best, and I didn't really want to go back into engineering because there's a lot of stigma around like women working in STEM. Even when I was at my practical training, there was a lot of like harassment from people there. If it's not in like a sexual kind of nature, there's also just a general perception that like women probably know less than men and men's opinions are more valid or they are given more weight. So if you're coming into that kind of like environment as a fresh graduate, it can be really demotivating.
I think for me, it was a bit of the environment. This is speaking from my limited experience working in engineering, but I did do an internship at site. Some of the things that I was just, maybe I felt a bit like lacking to a certain extent was I wanted people to trust me for my work, but in a way I felt like I wasn't really given that, just to a certain extent. Like they still did give me for work, but at times I would be like, oh, is there anything I can help with? And most of the times I felt like they were kind of giving it to my peers a bit more than they were to me. So I felt a little bit undervalued in that sense. I think it's partly the combination of being female and being an intern at that point in time.
Research conducted by Pew Research on workplace equity between men and women in STEM in the United States stated that nearly 50% of women face gender discrimination, 20% feel like their gender has made it hard for them to succeed at work, and 36% believe that sexual harassment is a problem in their workplace. And in Malaysia, a survey conducted by Women's Aid Organization found that around 62% out of 1,010 women reported having experienced sexual harassment at work, and 56% of women have experienced workplace discrimination. Another prominent factor that is present in a lot of complaints regarding the working environment in engineering is the workload.
I have had people or friends who work in construction and they just tell me like it's really taxing, long hours and just overall stress because you have to meet deadlines.
For me, I was working in a medium-sized local company, and that put me in a situation where I was pretty much overworked to the point that, it affected my mental health and so on and so forth. So for my case, I was working at times 7 days a week, literally with no stop because of the ongoing projects and due to the very tight time frame that I had to continuously work. So in that sense, it was like probably I start work at about 9 in the morning till 9 at night. So that's like 12 hours every day.
An article published by The Insider covers a similar story. It highlights the experience of an Australian engineer, Garfield, not his real name, who worked 70 to 80-hour work weeks, which caused many of his colleagues to quit. The Guardian also features an article that delves into the unfortunate story of a Toyota engineer in Japan who lost their life due to overwork. Overwork and workplace harassment seem to be prevalent in the Malaysian engineering field. But there is another thing that puts a damper on the longevity and innovation of many Malaysian engineers.
The mentality of if it's not broken, don't fix it. I have encountered this in my previous company where I was thinking of ways to improve certain things. And the feedback I got was, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
I think one reason is because they've been doing it for a long time and it works for them. And when you make changes, even though it might look good, but again, there's no proof that it might be better. So they don't see why you should take a risk. Maybe they're not used to it, but I think, as the people who are in their late 30s, 40s, I think once they climb up the ladder, I think we'll see a shift in this. I think they'll be more open to innovation.
Grant Freeland, senior advisor and senior partner of Boston Consulting Group, writes in Forbes, one of the biggest dangers successful companies face, he reminds us, is complacency. When a company is doing well, danger lies in self-satisfaction. Though this can be seen as speculation due to the lack of information we have on this topic, one can't deny the experiences of these professionals or would-be professionals have had in the field. And for sure, some would say, it's not just engineers going through this, all of us are. And they're not wrong. Just ask your colleagues, friends, family, cat, dog, your car, or watch our Office Safe Space series on TikTok or Instagram, and you'll see that almost everyone has had their fair share of troubles at work. But the one thing worth mentioning is that engineering, as well as other STEM fields, already has a high barrier of entry. So when colleagues, peers, employees, employers make it even harder for them, it's not only a detriment to the industry, but also the whole country. An article written by engineer Yok Lee Tan titled "The Fall of Engineering in Malaysia" highlights many of the things we've discussed in this video. But one that was particularly interesting is where she wrote, "My experience with the local graduates is that what they learn in universities do not match up with our requirement to carry out the job. Too much focus on research works in local universities lead to graduates who are not relevant to the common industries. Malaysia is a fabrication and manufacturing country, not really an R&D country. Many have highlighted the fact that a lot of engineering schools in Malaysia tend to focus a lot on research and theory theory rather than the practical aspects of engineering. This causes many Malaysian graduates who do want to pursue a career in R&D to face the cruel reality that there are not many research-based opportunities in Malaysia. So why do Malaysian universities focus on research and theory knowing full well that Malaysia is not an R&D country?
This is my theory. I think it depends on what universities you're talking about. If you're talking about private universities, especially international universities, there is a tendency maybe they are following the syllabus of their home country. And some of these universities are R&D universities in the first place. So, but again, you're still getting good knowledge anyway. But applying that knowledge in Malaysia when there are not many opportunities might be difficult, and probably that's why you have a lot of people going to different places.
Research universities are universities that are committed to research as a central part of their mission, like Harvard or MIT in the US. And in said universities, even undergraduate studies will incorporate research elements. In Malaysia, there are 5 universities that fall into this category: University of Malaya, University Science Malaysia, University Putra Malaysia, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, and University Technology Malaysia. Coincidentally, these universities are also among the top universities in Malaysia for engineering. However, this isn't a jab at research-based learning or research universities as a whole. Research and theory are important for almost any field, not just STEM. The world we know was founded on research and theory. The theory is the question and the research is the answer. #deep. However, the answer to the question of engineering education in Malaysia might just be that the education provided to students might not match up to the working landscape in Malaysia.
I wouldn't say engineering specifically. I think that's just an Asian thing. So I did do like a bit of time in Australia as well, like as a part of like an exchange program. But I would say my learning experience over there compared to here is very different. The lecturers and the professors there, they are more concerned about you understanding the subject matter over there, understanding the theory behind it, grasping the concept. Where else here, it's a lot more like rote memorization. They teach you what you need to know, how you pass the exams, and that's it. That's their job done for them. Those people graduating and going into the industry, like, it's not enough to just have rote. You need to have that like sort of critical thinking that's what's gonna help like propel you in your career. If you don't have that, then like there's no point.
Malaysian education is geared towards churning out factory workers. And what this means is, in the education, you don't think I tell you what to do, how to answer the examination questions. Do it as what it is, and then you'll be fine. You're not here to think. You're here to learn what I give you and then use what I give you in the open. Don't think whether it's good, whether what I've taught you is correct or not. Just use it. That's how I see Malaysian education right now. It's severely lacking. It needs an upgrade.
There's a lot that we didn't get to cover in this video because, as I've mentioned, this is a very large, very broad topic with many nuances. But I need to reiterate, changing careers is absolutely fine and 100% normal. At the end of the day, the choice is yours. And if you feel like changing career paths is the best decision to make for yourself, go off, kings and queens. However, what needs to be understood here is that engineering graduates can choose to get into different fields like marketing or sales, but the inverse is not possible. Someone with a marketing or sales background cannot be an engineer. So when engineers choose to either leave the country and take their trade to somewhere else, or leave the profession entirely, it should raise some red flags. But also worth noting, it's not just engineers who are feeling this way. A lot of other professionals have expressed their dissatisfaction at how they are treated in Malaysia. Healthcare professionals leaving for better remuneration, a shortage of teachers in primary and secondary schools caused by an immense workload, and accounting and auditing jobs continue to be perceived as underpaying and undervalued. So what can be done?
Not speaking for everyone, but let's say if it was me, I guess just a better overall working environment, because things can get relatively heavy. And I think one being in male-dominated, and also sometimes when you go to companies, most of the people there are on the older range. There's a bit of a barrier there, and they aren't as attentive sometimes in teaching you. So there's gaps essentially. And if we can provide a more supportive working environment, I feel like it's hard, especially in engineering, but if we are able to do so, provide a better and more supportive environment combined with better compensation, then I feel like people will feel more valued and maybe also more inclined to stay within the field.
I think companies or maybe the government body, BAM or what, maybe they have to be a bit more transparent with how the engineering field is. Like more transparent in the sense that they probably may already are, but maybe not many people are hearing about it. So more vocal in that, and to give engineers, show them some pathways where they can go. Because a lot of us are probably lost as well. We come out, we just, okay, maybe I'll just apply to this company, I'll try this out. So maybe have a little bit of that as well.
One of the aspects I could take is prepare students in university taking the course what to expect in the engineering field, rather than focusing more on, yes, the theory, the calculations is important, but to actually maybe send them out on more internships. For example, every year you have one internship, something that would let them taste or feel what's life in the real working world in Malaysia.
One would be the pay, probably. And the second would probably be offering a lot more opportunities for growth. Women need to be appreciated in the workplace more, but again, like you're not going to see a lot of these changes until 20, 30 years from now, when these people with specific mentalities have like retired and newer, fresher perspectives come into the environment and are hiring people who are like-minded.
At the most basic level, perhaps education itself, we have universities that produce aerospace engineers, but a lot of them, they don't have any soft skills. The ones who do well, they already have soft skills. So education should be the first to change.
The Board of Engineers Malaysia, or BEM, have been made aware of the issues faced by Malaysian engineers, namely limited job options in engineering, lack of awareness of job scope of the engineering profession by graduates and employers. The starting salary of engineers increases at a small rate and does not keep pace with the current increase in the cost of living. The starting salary of an engineer is dependent on supply and demand, and from an employer's perspective, new engineering graduates are considered not to contribute to the company's income in the early stages of employment. And they have suggested several fixes to address the problem. One of them is increasing the starting salary range of engineers to between 2,500 to 3,500 ringgit. But this is only for the short term. For long-term planning, a few suggestions were made. Benchmarking the starting salary of an engineer, taking into account the cost of living and other professional salaries, financial incentives to companies that are eligible to employ engineers with a starting salary of 2 years. BEM will work with other government agencies in providing the effectiveness of the Interest Awareness Campaign program registered with BEM, among many others. We will have to wait and see if any of the aforementioned plans, suggestions, and strategies do actually take place. But something needs to be done really soon, because, as stated in BEM's own report, if the issues discussed above are not dealt with immediately, the younger generation will not choose the engineering profession as a career choice. And if this graph of the registration of pure science subjects from the Ministry of Education is to be believed, the decline has already begun.